Hey, what is up guys? Epic Pokemon TCG here, and today guys, I'm going to be doing a top 10 list of my underrated cards from Sun and Moon Guardians Rising. These are going to be cards that I feel like aren't getting as much attention, but could still be pretty decent, probably mostly splashed in fun decks or something like that. And so, hopefully you enjoy the video. If you do, make sure to like it, subscribe if you're not subscribed, it'll be much appreciated, and let's get into the video. So the first card we're going to be talking about on this list is going to be Mimikyu. Now Mimikyu is actually a really interesting card because it has a cool attack called Copycat. And it does what the attack does. If your opponent's Pokemon use an attack that isn't a GX attack during their last turn, use it as this attack. So I feel like this could be an interesting card. I feel like this could be like something kind of neat to splash in for fun. Because there's a lot of attacks out there right now that are actually pretty good. And a lot of decks only really use one attack sometimes. So just something kind of cool to think about, like for instance, if you go against a Mega Mewtwo and it uses like Psychic Infinity or something, then Mimikyu can copy this attack, or even Giratina's Chaos Will could be a very interesting attack to use. Just really just a cool card and has like some fun potential there. And so I was like, you know what, why not throw it on this list? The next card I wanted to talk about is the supporter card Hala. I guess that's how you say that card's name.
Holla at your boy, I give money!
Or that dude's name, whatever. This is actually a really interesting supporter because it actually utilizes the GX attack. It gives you a benefit after you use it. Basically what this card does is shuffle your hand into your deck and then draw 4 cards. If you already used the GX attack during this game, you draw 7 cards instead. I feel like this is one of those supporters that's like, it could be good, but like, it's not something you want to see early on in your hand. But I feel like at the same time it has that under the radar potential. Especially if you've really used your GX attack pretty much right off the bat, maybe to set up, or maybe like you just kind of run into the position where I get in sometimes when I'm playing GX Pokemon, specifically Tauros, where I'll just use it early game to get something off the board as soon as possible. Just really a cool supporter, and I feel like some decks could actually take advantage of this card, just because like I've seen decks or I've seen players that just like use their GX attack pretty much right off the bat, and I feel like it could be a cool card just to get like a refreshing hand of 7. So the next card featured on this list is going to be the first GX of the list. I didn't write this down in a specific order. I just started writing them, and then here we are. But anyway, it's going to be Turtonator GX. Now this is actually a very cool card, and I feel like it's kind of getting outshined by like the more popular cards like Sylveon GX, Tapu Lele GX, and Lycanroc GX. I actually wanted to put this on my top 10 list, but my top 10 list got really crammed up, and so here we are. But it has a really cool first attack called Shell Trap for 20 during your opponent's next turn. If this Pokemon is damaged by an attack, and even if it's knocked out, you put 8 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. And then it has Bright Flame for 160 for 2 fire and a colorless, and you discard 2 fire energy from this Pokemon. And then it has the awesome attack Nitro Tank GX. Attach 5 fire energy from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way you'd like. So really the first attack is the one that kind of caught my eye because it's just really annoying, and if you pair this up with Bursting Balloon and they don't have a way to get rid of it, if they can't top deck a Field Blower or something, or Lysander around it, then they're going to be taking a substantial amount of damage, which is actually really cool, or if they escape rope it. But still, in all honesty, I feel like that first attack can just kind of make your opponent have to play their turn out differently, just because if they're trying to avoid that attack, they're trying to avoid getting damage counters placed on them, then maybe they could miss something. Turtonator is just kind of a big threat, and I've actually had some ideas for this card, and I'm hoping to get my hands on some of them so I can show you guys the decks in future videos. So Turtonator is actually a really cool card. The first attack is really the one that I was honestly looking at, just because it's annoying and it can be very trolly and just kind of force your opponent to play out their turn a little differently. Alright, so the next card featured on this list is a fun deck just waiting to happen. It is going to be Gliscor. Now Gliscor has a very weird first attack, but I feel like if you can get it working, it can actually turn out to be a cool little fun deck that you can goof off with and just have a good time. It has Finishing Stinger for 70 for 1 fighting energy. If your opponent's active Pokemon has no damage counters on it before this attack did damage, this attack does nothing. So basically what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to put damage on your opponent's Pokemon before you do the attack. And some cards I was thinking about was potentially maybe Spinda, with the one that puts 10 damage counters on everything. And then there's that Team Magma Secret Base, I believe it's called, the one featured in Gyarados decks that puts 2 damage counters on pretty much your, I think it's just everything that isn't a Team Magma Pokemon. And with Choice Band coming out, that means you can turn that 70 into 100, and if you pair it with Evolutions and you hit for weakness, that one fighting energy can turn into 200 damage, which is actually very cool. And I was just thinking about this deck, and I was like, this actually seems like it could be a blast if you can get this all set up. And so I was like, you know what, Gliscor just kind of seems like that weird rogue fun deck that you can kind of just goof around with, have some fun, and it deserves a spot on this list just because of that. So the next card featured on this list is going to be Tapu Koko GX. Now this is actually a very cool card because it has the ability Arrow Trail. When you play this Pokemon for your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may move any number of electric energy from your other Pokemon to this Pokemon. If you do, switch this Pokemon with your active Pokemon. And then it has Sky High Claws for 130, and the GX attack Tapu Thunder GX. This attack does 50 damage times the amount of energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. So pretty much this card can just be kind of a surprise attacker you can kind of throw in and move some energy attached to it. I actually have a deck idea coming out really soon. As soon as I get my hands on 2 of these cards, that deck will be completely finished and ready to go. But basically with Tapu Koko, you can kind of just play it down, switch it, get something that's probably heavily damaged, or just like if you're just in a really bad spot, you can just kind of get it out of the way. And you have just an attacker that's doing 130. And if your opponent is pretty set up, they have a decent amount of energy on the board, like they have at least 4, then that's 200 damage, which is actually very freaking good. And I feel like this is very limited because, you know, there's not that much electric out right now. But at the same time, there is some good stuff that you can pair this card with, and I cannot wait to show you guys what I've been working on with this deck and this card. And Tapu Koko is just all around, I think, one of the better GXs of this set. I would rank this among probably my top 4, I would think. The first 3 being Tapu Lele, Lycanroc, and of course probably Sylveon, and then I would probably throw Tapu Koko in there. Nothing against Drampa GX, but I just like Tapu Koko just because of that surprise factor and the fact that you can just do a pretty good amount of damage with Tapu Thunder because you could kind of just throw this down, use Arrow Trail, and then use Tapu Thunder, which is very good. I feel like that could be just kind of a card that you can throw down, surprise your opponent, get 2 prizes, and swing the game in your favor. So the next card featured on this list is actually going to be on this list because it has a very interesting ability, and I think it's something actually pretty cool that can prevent, like, or slow down at least, your basics getting picked off, and it's just all around a really neat card that I feel like could slow down Decidueye and force them to have to Lysander this out and knock it out. So the next card on this list is going to be Machoke, and this has the ability Intimidating Stance, and you prevent all damage and placement of damage counters from your opponent's attacks and abilities to your bench Pokemon. And so that means abilities like Feather Arrow and just attacks that hit the bench won't be getting through because of Machoke's ability. And I feel like this could be a really cool way to kind of protect your bench and not allow your opponent to set up knockouts or make knockouts easier on something coming up to the active spot. And really the only thing that'll be in danger is your active. And in all honesty, I felt like Machoke was actually a very interesting card. I felt like it was something that you could throw into like low HP decks that have to, you know, evolve, just so Decidueye just doesn't, you know, come get slapped down and just Feather Arrow and pick off stuff before you can even do anything with them. Alright, so the next card featured on this list is going to be Rayquaza. Now, this card is specifically on this list because of its first attack, giving you energy acceleration, and I thought maybe this could help out some decks that might be a little slower, might take a little more time to set up, and, you know, give you a 1-prize attacker that's throwing some energy on the board. It has Turbo Storm for 30 for a DCE, and you attach 2 basic energy cards from discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. So if you throw a Fighting Fury Belt on this card, you can start hitting for 40, and you have 160 HP Pokemon that's getting you basic energy on the board. Or you can throw Choice Band on it, and it'll be doing 60 and giving you 2 energy. I thought this was actually a very little interesting card, just because of that energy acceleration. You never know what that can do for certain decks. And the fact that it only gives up 1 prize actually isn't too awful. And so I was like, you know what, man, let's throw it on there. It also has a second attack called Dragon Claw. This does 80 damage. Rayquaza is nothing too special. It's just a card that gives you energy acceleration, and you never know what that can do. Alright, so the next card featured on this list is going to be one that I need to fix my camera. There we go. Alright, the next card featured on this list, guys, is going to be Bewear. Now, Bewear has a very cool ability and a very interesting attack. Its ability is called Rake It In. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may draw 3 cards. So when you evolve, you get the effect of a Sharon, Tierno, Howl, whatever you want to say. And then it has Dangerous Blow for 60 plus. If your opponent's active is a basic Pokemon, this attack does 60 more damage. It takes 3 energies, 3 colorless. Basically, this is just on this list just because it could hit basics for a lot of damage. Stuff like Volcanion, Evital, Tauros, Tapu Lele. I mean, the list goes on. Just a cool little card. Only gives up 1 prize, and you get 3 cards whenever you evolve it. And every time, sprayer thing. Every time. So what I thought about was maybe you can play this card and like Tekken and stuff. Maybe like you have basic Pokemon are like really big in your area. You know, a lot of decks don't really use Megas too much, which is very unlikely. But I mean, you can hit stuff like Darkrai. You can hit stuff like Giratina potentially. And Beware was just a neat little card that I thought might work out in some decks. You know, maybe if you can get it going. I don't know. Alright, so next card featured on this list, guys, is going to be Trevenant. Now, Trevenant is a card that I bought 4 of immediately as soon as I saw it because I like it so much. It's a grass type, so you're going to be benefiting from Forest of Giant Plants, which is very good. And the obvious choice with this card is probably going to be Vileplume because of its attack Poltergeist. For 30 times, your opponent reveals their hand. This attack does 30 damage for each trainer card you find there. So it says trainer, not item, so that means you're going to be hitting whenever your opponent has things like supporters, stadiums, and trainer or item cards, excuse me, which is actually really cool. Vileplume is going to stop your opponent from playing item cards, so that just increases the amount of damage you can do potentially, and you can get those cards both out very fast with Forest of Giant Plants. And Poltergeist only takes DCE, which is very cool, and the picture looks very awesome. I wish I had a layer editor so I can throw it up on screen. It probably makes this video a lot better. But yes, just a cool card all around. And it has Horn Leech for 90 damage for 2 grass and a colorless, and you heal 30 damage from its Pokemon. Not too great there, but mostly you're just going to be doing Poltergeist, and like I said, pair it up with Vileplume, then you have the potential to do a ton of damage, which is really awesome. Alright guys, the number 1 spot on this list is going to a card that is actually my favorite on this list, not because I feel it is the most underrated card in the set, but that is going to be Metagross GX. Now, Metagross GX has a nice ability called Geotech System, which it does is... Once during your turn before you attack, you may attach a Metal or Psychic Energy card from your discard pile to your active Pokemon. So basically, this is going to allow you to charge up your active Pokemon with a energy from your discard pile, which is very nice. And if you have multiple of these out, you can start stacking them and keeping energy on the board. And then it has Giga Hammer for 150 damage. And then this Pokemon can't use Giga Hammer during your next turn. And it has Algorithm GX, search your deck for up to 5 cards and put them in your hand. So with Giga Hammer, I see cards like Zoroark, Floatstone, Pokemon Ranger, Escape Rope, just things to pretty much get the Metagross out of the active spot or remove the effect of the attack being good. You can also run Choice Band, and Zoroark would be very cool. That's an idea I was potentially thinking about. And then if you don't get hit by N, Algorithm GX is actually a pretty nice attack. And I feel like Metagross is probably not going to be the best deck in the format, but it's something I'm definitely going to build just so I can play with one of my favorite Pokemon. Alright guys, that is going to do it for my top 10 list of the most underrated cards in Guardians Rising. This is strictly my opinion. These are just cards I feel like people were just counting out completely, saying they sucked. Whenever they might have potential to go into fun decks or might make some decks a little better. But some cards on this list might not belong on this list, like Turtonator and Tapu Koko, because I know there's people actually working on competitive decks with these cards. And so, I don't know. This was just my opinion. I had a lot of fun doing these top 10 lists. I did another one for like my top 10 overall of Guardians Rising. I didn't really necessarily have too much left to look over after I did my top 10 list in general. So I could probably shorten this list up a little bit. But at the same time, I just wanted to give some cards a little bit of spotlight and talk about them a little bit. But if you enjoyed the video, guys, make sure to like it, subscribe for some more content, and maybe I'll be back with some more Guardians Rising content. I don't know. Ooh, excuse me, I just choked up there. But yeah, that's going to do it for me, guys. Take care. I love you. And this is Epic Pokemon TCG signing out. Take care, guys.